Welcome to episode 45 of Bee's Travelogue. After a lot of cloudy days, I finally saw a blue sky weekend and went to Jeonju. I took the local bus from Namak to Mokpo train station and then the KTX. I had to switch trains in Iksan to go on a very short ride from Iksan to Jeonju. In the beginning, near Mokpo, the landscape was very hilly, but once we got to Iksan and Jeonju, it was very flat. In Jeonju, I had to catch a local bus right outside the train station to go downtown. Right across from the cathedral was Jeonju Shrine. This was the home and birthplace of the first king of the Joseon dynasty. There were many smaller buildings around the courtyards. Many of them you could look inside, see the furniture. I especially admired the different floors. I especially love this pink tree. I hadn't seen one like that before, but everywhere I went in Jeonju, there were these pink trees all over. I finally made my way to the actual shrine and just walked around this courtyard here. It reminded me of lots of K-dramas I had seen in the past. Inside was the portrait of one of the kings, and I found out that there was actually a portrait museum in the back of the complex. But when I went to find it, it turned out that it was under renovation and was only going to open in August. But I'm very glad I went. A lot of the buildings and the bamboo grove have been used in K-dramas such as Mr. Sunshine, My First Love, Love in the Moonlight, and The King's Affection. After visiting the shrine, I went to the cathedral across. However, I couldn't go inside. You could only go inside if you wanted to pray, and I really didn't want to pray. I just wanted to take pictures, and I didn't want to pretend. Outside the church was some interesting artwork and explanations about the church. It was lunchtime, and Jeonju is famous for its bibimbap. It's considered one of the food capitals of South Korea. So I went for bibimbap, but I didn't like it. Jeonju is also famous for its Hanok village. I walked through the village for a little bit and then climbed the hill that's right adjacent to it. On top of the hill was a pavilion, and from there I had a very good view of the village. I left the hill and walked down the sloping road eastward. There were some beautiful paintings mounted along the wall. I then came to an old Hanok area with a shooting range that has been used in many K-dramas, and you'll probably recognize it. I had just seen this area in Love in the Moonlight. From here, I briefly walked to the river. There was a huge swing that I sat on, just like in K-dramas. I had wanted to go to some of the temples on the hills, but I really didn't know how to reach them, so I ended up going back to the Confucian school. The buildings in the school and the temples behind it have been used as backdrops in many K-dramas. You might recognize some of the buildings from Love in the Moonlight, My Dearest, Sangkyongkwan Scandal, The King's Affection, The Red Sleeve, and Under the Queen's Umbrella. I had fun walking around and exploring every corner. Some parts were under construction, especially the garden areas, so we had to walk on special rocks to not disturb where grass was being planted. From one of the buildings, I heard chanting, so I think some of them are being used even today. My Airbnb was going to let me in after 4 p.m. and I had been carrying my heavy backpack, so it was time to head in that direction. I came to this beautiful covered bridge and then walked back into Jeonju looking for the Airbnb. I had trouble locating my Airbnb, so I contacted the owner, and while I waited for a response, had a nice afternoon dessert in a cafe. The owner of the Airbnb actually came to find me and made sure that I found his place. After I checked in and dropped off my stuff, I walked back out into the more modern area of Jeonju and found another historical area being reconstructed. Around Jeonju, there were lots of old ginkgo trees and then more of these pink trees everywhere. My next destination was Jaman Mural Village. I walked past this shooting range and lots of activities for kids and got back to the Hanok village, where I came to this troupe of drummers. Even before I got to the mural village, I already found lots of artwork. Then I came to the overpass and crossed, and then came to this map of the village. From Edward Scissorhands to beautiful views over Jeonju, this village was really amazing. Just like in Mokpo and Yosu, I walked through very narrow, winding roads to find each artwork. This one, for example, had amazing details, so just stop the video and look more closely. This one looked familiar, and as I was deciphering the Korean, I realized it was City Hunter with Lee Min-ho and Park Min-young. There were cartoon images like this Pinocchio, modern art like this one, and lots of areas where people had just decorated their homes in some ways. Some of the buildings lay in ruins, but there were quite a few buildings where people were living. I could hear children in the backyard playing games, laughing. It was very fun to walk around. It wasn't just paintings. Items were painted like these milk cans. There were mailboxes, walls decorated with tiles. People were really being very creative in this area. Some of the paintings I wasn't sure if they were actually from some shows that I didn't know, I didn't recognize. This one looked very familiar, but I couldn't tell. Of course, there were cats resting everywhere. It was very quiet in this area. I was the only foreigner walking around, and otherwise I just saw a few of the locals going about their business. I loved how the building structure was incorporated into the artwork. Here's a yellow electricity meter against the yellow wall. We have the rain pipe that's part of the flamingo. And then the next painting, at first I didn't recognize what it was, and then I saw it was a dog face where the eyes are the windows. I had walked a loop through the village and was coming downhill through this beautiful street and actually saw some plaques that gave credit to the artists. I was getting tired and was heading back toward the overpass. On the way, there were still more paintings, more beautiful houses, more things to see. I really liked this dragon that's coming up here, but then somebody had parked his truck right in front of the dragon's face. The sun was starting to set. I passed a couple more important historic monuments, then crossed the overpass, and decided to go back up on the hill where I had been in the afternoon to see if I could watch the sunset. I found a spot on the overlook that was absolutely gorgeous. The sun was very orange. I guess there was some smog in the air. It went from orange to really dark red and looked just like this tiny little circle on the horizon. I was hungry and tired, but I headed to my Airbnb first, took a shower, and then went back out to get some dinner. I found a beer garden with chicken wings, french fries, and local craft beer. It was good but pretty expensive. Tired as I was, because it was my only night in Jeonju, I took a detour past some of the monuments to see them lit up. Please join me for my second day in Jeonju. Thanks for watching.